Thanks for joining me for this edition of the Church Security Answer Man. I'm so glad you're here. We need to talk about the craziness that occurred at Jesus Dwelling Place Church in Braddock, Pennsylvania, just this last Sunday. And hopefully you're hearing a little bit about it. And if you're in church security, hopefully you're studying this a little bit. During the Sunday service, 1 o'clock, 26-year-old Bernard Polite of Braddock, Pennsylvania, he comes into the service. And here it is right here, pulls out a gun, walks up, points it at the pastor and tries to shoot the pastor, but the gun won't go off. Now, I've blurred out the gun here just to try to save myself a little bit with the YouTube people. But the reality is he made a valid attempt to try to end the pastor's life, and just crazy. And this is occurring during the sermon, just after 1 o'clock. And he attempts to shoot the Pastor Germany, but the gun doesn't go off. Pastor calls it a miracle, and hey, I see that. It's a good thing it wasn't a basic gun that doesn't have too many mechanisms or too many things that can interfere with that shooting process. But in reality, it doesn't go off. So whether it's a miracle, God intervened, and I'm all about that stuff. The pastor's very fortunate that it didn't happen. One of the deacons, Clarence McAllister, he tackles the man, runs up, tackles him, and the deacon and the pastor subdue him. They hold him down until police arrive. Now, think about this craziness. And later, the pastor talks about it, because I want you thinking about this. What would you do if you were in that situation? And the pastor talks about how traumatized his congregation was, specifically his daughter, how upset she was by this. And, we need to be thinking about these things as leaders. What does this do to our people? I mean, I'm glad this incident was avoided, but what does it also do to our people? So they tackle him, they hold him down till police get there. The pastor says that while they're holding him down, the suspect tells him that the suspect, he says, I'm dealing with spirits, and he wanted to shoot somebody today. And he's got voices in his mind. And, typical, if we talk about schizophrenia, that's very typical. All of that stuff's very typical of schizophrenia. Those that are suffering, sadly, from schizophrenia, mental health issues, as the pastor calls them. And so we need to educate ourselves on those kind of things, especially if you're in the security stuff. You need to be on top of those kind of things. So, before the attempt, we should also look at it, because I want to analyze this. Part of my reason is sharing this with you is what happened, and then the lessons that we can learn from this. And the pastor said that at one point, Bernard was smiling at him. And then he had walked in and out of the church room several times. This is a small church. And he said he had walked in and out of the room several times, and he was smiling at him. So, creepy stuff, but we're talking about mental health issues here. And fortunately, the gun didn't work for whatever reason. And fortunately, the deacon was able to spring into action and is certainly being called a hero now. Now, it gets worse, as I've been showing you there in the slide. Police find 56-year-old Derek Polite deceased at the residence where Derek lives. Now, there's some timeline issues there that it sounds to me like it's very possible that the father committed suicide. And I, sadly, and I don't know that. I'm not there. I don't know anything. But if I look at the timelines where it seems like the news is reporting that this occurred on Sunday evening when the son was already in jail. So the first thing I think of is, did he kill his father ahead of time? And I don't know that. That could be a possibility so far. But it sounds more like these two events have different actors involved. And it sounds like it might, I don't know though, but it could be leaning towards a suicide situation. So what lessons, and I'm totally speculating on that. So what lessons, discussion points can we learn? And it's the same thing I keep saying is, small churches are big targets. And so you pastors, people are always saying it's not going to happen here. I can't tell you the number of people I have that email me or leave me a comment, which I always want you to leave me comments down below. But how many people leave me comments that their pastors, their leaders say, "Hey, it's not going to happen here." And statistically, it's going to be hard to happen at your place, but it can happen. We got 380,000 registered churches in the United States, 7,000 plus in Canada, and thousands in many of the countries that we have audience members that you might be watching from. But so statistically, it's probably not going to come to your facility. But what if it does? Nobody expected it to come to this church in Bernard, Pennsylvania, or Braddock, Pennsylvania. And so we have to be prepared. That's plain and simple what I want to talk to you about. That's the lessons we can learn. It might happen there. You can say it'll never happen here, but it actually might. And it might not be the tragic shooting. In this case, it ended up not being a tragic shooting. It ended up being a shooting that was avoided. But what other kind of violence can come to your church and scare your people or victimize your people? We're reading about it constantly. And the threats of violence are increasing right now. As the FBI director keeps telling us, he's told us like 4 times now that the threat levels keep going up and up. And just a week ago, he told us they're higher than he's ever seen. So it's like they're more numerous. So you and I need to be getting more prepared for those kind of things. And the best thing you can do is start preparing somehow. Prepare one person. This church, the Jesus Dwelling Place Church, has one person, the deacon, that sprang into action. If you have somebody at your church that you feel like would be willing to spring into action, that's the person you need to talk to about investing a little bit of training. Get some online training. We've got some down in the description section. There's other people who have training as well too. Seek out some training. Start with one person if you're a small church. And I know it seems silly for some of you. You're way out in the country, or you're in a part of town that's so quiet. You just don't expect this kind of stuff. But get somebody some training so that they know if you should expect something, so that you've got somebody that's got a little bit of training that can handle this, somebody that's a regular attender, somebody that's got a good head on their shoulders. Maybe they've got some past experience, like we've talked about before, some military experience, or firefighter, or EMT, or police, or, corrections officer, probation officer. They've got some kind of experience where they've had training and had to make difficult decisions under pressure. So seek out that one person if you have nobody, and get them started and let them begin to be better at protecting your church. And then maybe they'll find a second person that can help them with that process. So today it's so important, especially with all the threat levels, that we don't take this lightly right now. And we continue to say it. And I continue to say, let's get prepared. Let's try to do something. And many of you continue to say it'll never happen here, but it's happening here. It's happening at small town churches. So I encourage you to dig in a little bit more. You can do that by going into our description section here. churchsecurityacademy.org has some great training. Also connect with us, subscribe. We really appreciate it if you do that, to connect with us and also to help others see that this is good material for them to take a look at. So, and then take a look at this next video, and you're in your journey in church security.